today I'm going to break down forearm stand for you and just let you know how to enter this pose and find comfort in holding this pose. So pincher is, or forearm stand is a posture that we normally practice at the end of our class as a peak pose, or something that we've practiced once we've warmed up the body. So if you are practicing this at home, just make sure you've gone through a little flow to warm up the body, or maybe a few sun salutations, just to make sure that the shoulders are a little bit warm, you've created some space through the backs of the legs, you've engaged and connected to your core, and most importantly, you've used your practice to connect your breath. So for any inversion, any peak posture, any advanced posture, it's really, really important to continue breathing. So you want to have a nice connection to your breath before you even start practicing forearm stand. And then secondly, just allow yourself to release any fear. This is an inversion, we are upside down, so there may be some fear involved of falling out of this or just being upside down. So you are definitely 100% capable, and if there is any fear there, just try and release it, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And then breaking down the posture. So you want to make sure that your elbows are shoulder width apart. So just like our headstand, we do this by bringing opposite hand to opposite elbow, and then we just move the hands from there, making sure that the elbows do not move. So first option is to keep the hands directly in line with the elbows, so parallel to the edges of our mats, making sure they shoulder width apart. Palms are going to be face down and fingers are going to be spread wide. This can be quite a hard variation because it's using a lot more arm strength and shoulder strength, but a really good way to build that strength in the upper body. There's also the option to just bring the thumbs to touch, so creating a kind of triangle base with the forearms. Fingers are still spread wide, hands are still grounded onto the mat, elbows are still shoulder width apart. This is my favorite option between these two. Some people do like to bring the hands to interlace, and then some people do like to have a little pointer finger with the index fingers, so it's like gun position in the hands. I personally do not like the interlace of the hands. I find that I can't distribute the weight through my forearms fully when I have the hands interlaced, so I like to have my hands flat on the mat. It really gives me that grounding support that I feel like I need. But I know people who find it a lot easier to have their hands interlaced, so you just need to figure out what works for your body. And then if you are wanting to keep the hands in line with the elbows, but you find they keep coming in when you kick up, a really nice way to keep them out is to use a block and just bring an L shape with the hands on the edges of the block. So if you don't have a block, just using a book or anything that's about shoulder width apart for your hands. So once you've figured out what hand position works for you, maybe you're going to play around with a few, just coming to find that. Second thing that is really important here is gaze. When we're starting to learn how to kick up, we want to make sure that we keep our gaze forward. So I really like to demonstrate the importance of gaze using crow pose because it shows it perfectly. So when I keep my gaze forward in my crow's pose, gazing forward, it's going to send my body forward and bring my feet to lift a lot easier than if I have my gaze down and head down. That's where I'm sending my energy and I'm going to fall onto my head. So whenever I teach crow pose, I often find people gazing between their hands and then they're coming over like this, and that's actually making them scared of the posture because they're falling. Whereas if you just keep your gaze forward, it's a lot harder to fall. Even though if you fall, it may be on the face, it's okay. So really important when we're kicking up into our forearm stand to have that gaze forward. We normally only start practicing a gaze shift, tucking the gaze under, when we have found comfort in holding our normal forearm stand, and it is a lot harder, using a lot more strength through your body to find that gaze shift. So while you're learning, keeping gaze forward. Okay. So setting up arms, gazing forward. From here, I want to start sending the hips high, straightening through the legs. So this is why it's nice to have warmed up through the backs of the legs a little bit before coming to practice your forearm stand, because then you'll be able to walk the feet in a little bit closer. So from here, I'm going to lift into one leg, slight bend into the other leg, and then find a little hop up. And maybe I'm still breathing, can bring legs to touch. And then slowly hopping back down. So remember, if this is what your hop up looks like for now, that's okay. You're eventually going to find that strength to come up. If you have a fear of falling over backwards, you might find yourself not kicking up enough. That's okay, just slowly let it happen, or use the wall to help you first. I'm going to show you one thing about using the wall though a little bit later in this tutorial breakdown, whatever it is. Okay, so bending your back here is can quite easily happen. So that's why it's really important when you're kicking up to think of sending energy through the legs and keeping the legs active and really active in the core. So this is what happens when I'm not sending energy through the legs and I'm not active in my core. I'm going to come and kick up and just find this back bend, which is cool. It looks nice, definitely looks great. I'm hanging out here easily because I've got a split on the legs. However, if I don't have a warm back and I'm not a naturally flexible person in my back and I haven't warmed up the back in a previous practice, I can injure myself by kicking like that, or I can find myself going over, which can hurt the back. But yeah, so for a normal forearm stand, when I can send energy through the legs and keep the legs active, core engaged, this is then what happens. So straight legs, core engaged. It's really hard for me to go over into a back bend here unless I release the engagement of my core. From here I can easily just bring the legs together and I use my breath to find comfort here. So I'm pushing out of the forearms, gazing forward, drawing shoulders away from ears. I'm breathing, I'm drawing my core in, tucking tailbone, sending energy through to the tips of my toes, and then slowly coming out when I'm ready. Okay, so as soon as I don't kick up with straight legs and an engaged core, that's when I'll find that back bend. You may find yourself going into this and finding that back bend and being able to hold, and it feels amazing and looks amazing too. But trying to bring yourself out of that back bend by engaging the core and coming to a straight line is going to be a lot harder than if you just teach yourself to kick up into a straight line. Also, we want to enter those back bends in a controlled way too. So eventually, once I have done a back bend practice and I'm intending to practice back bends, then I will want to rather first come up to my straight line pincher and then use this to first take me into a back bend, or come back, engage core, back bend. Okay, so my back isn't too warm now. Don't want to go into deep back bends while demonstrating this, but it's always nice to enter and exit everything as controlled as we can. So if you are even going to practice a back bend in a forearm stand, you want to first know how to come up to your straight line forearm stand. So the basic things that I'm doing when I'm in that forearm stand, like I said, pushing out of the shoulders, breathing, gazing forward, sending energy up through the core, tucking tailbone, drawing lower core up and in, engaging mula bandha. Sending energy up through my legs, pointing or flexing into the toes, whatever feels good for you, but just make sure there's this activation through the legs, because as soon as we don't activate through the legs, they can take us over or out of this. So yeah, that's basically the basics of a straight forearm stand and how to enter this. So you can kick, you may find yourself over kicking, having a little fall, cartwheeling out of this, going over backwards. Just play with it, allow yourself to fall as well. That's how we learn and we overcome our fears. If you are really afraid of trying this without a wall, you can 100% use a wall for forearm stand. However, what is going to happen is your back is going to banana bend. So I'm going to demonstrate this, talk you through how to get yourself used to coming out of this posture without a back bend. So coming into our forearm stand with a wall will look something like this. We're going to take the feet over our head to find the wall. So as you can see, there is a banana in my back. When I start taking the feet off my wall, I want to start activating through the core, taking the other leg off the wall, and then engaging through the core, trying to straighten through the body as much as I can. So just being aware that when you do practice with the wall, there's a slight dump into the lower tailbone and core to get the feet to touch the wall behind you. So you really want to practice engaging the core, coming out of that back bend, to build the strength in your core and legs to hold a straight line where we've got the feet stacked above hips around about stacked above shoulders. And then yeah, if you are practicing back bends into forearm stand, try and do so with a properly warmed up spine, as well as when you can hold a straight line forearm stand, although I know sometimes it is easier to hold a back bend position. So like I did earlier with that split leg, it can be easier to hold that because I've got this distribution of weight. However, I'm not really using much strength in my core. So yeah, that's pretty much that. And then super important to keep breathing. Like I said, for forearm stand and for headstand tutorial, and I will say for everything, when you stop breathing, your body thinks something's wrong, so it's going to push you out of this. So if you can hold your breath for super long, you may find yourself holding yourself in your forearm stand. But as soon as your body can't hold the breath anymore, you'll fall out, even if you've got the strength in your arms to hold you there for longer. So a nice inhale to kick up, slow exhale up there. Feel yourself use that exhale to engage the body, activate through core, send energy through legs, and then just connect to a nice slow inhale and exhale, holding yourself up there. So I'm going to demo with the breath without talking, and then it's your turn. So taking a nice inhale, kick up, activate, engage, exhale. So because I'm connected to that breath, I'm finding a whole lot of comfort in holding this posture. The breath reminds me to activate through my body, and it really helps me just find stability and build strength holding this posture. So I think that's all. If I have forgotten to mention anything, or you find yourself practicing this and you need to know something, please feel free to ask me. But I think that's all, and you are definitely 100% capable of doing a forearm stand. So now it's up to you to just put in the practice and let it happen.